Time, it's a border we all cross. Some run, some drift. But in the end, the waves always take you home. George has a flashback of the train station in Sofia in 1970s. The steam train moves. The soldiers shout orders. Young George in his 20s turning toward the train as the thin shafts of white smoke slice through the station. For a few minutes, his thoughts went back to the days at the Maritsa River Day, when he was just a little boy diving into the river with his friends. Laughter echoes in the wind, and water droplets suspend in midair. This is a true story of faith, freedom, and the miracle of survival behind the Iron Curtain. Presented by Kirill Christoph. On October 4, 2025, he became an award-winning author of the year 2025 at the gala held in Hollywood, California, for his historical fiction and novel, Crossing Borders of Time. He's also a screenwriter and member of Angel Studios. I signed hundreds of my books at different Christian conferences as a guest speaker. I will never forget the testimony of faithfulness to God, as chronicled in my memoir, which spans 4 generations across the Old and New Worlds. One man's journey to search for his Ukrainian, Greek, and Bulgarian roots. The story follows Grandpa George, a defiant Bulgarian immigrant escaping communism, who rebuilt his life in New York alongside his wife Maria, an Italian immigrant. Years later, a road trip with his grandson Alex became a surreal journey, though memory, myth, and the family's haunting past, ultimately revealing a powerful story of trauma. Drawing on themes of immigrant memoirs, time travel, out-of-body experiences, and afterlife encounters. This story blends inspirational and faith-based storytelling deeply rooted in the rich cultural landscapes of Eastern Europe, particularly Ukraine, Greece, and Bulgaria. I've been deeply inspired by the faith-based films produced and distributed by Angel Studios, from His Only Son, Cabrini, The Riot and the Dance, to the exclusive Guild. Between Borders, Live, Not by Lies, and lastly, A Faith Under Siege, which powerfully portray life and courage behind the Iron Curtain. George wrote his historical memoirs 60 years after the events, driven not by nostalgia, but by a pressing sense of moral responsibility. Having witnessed truth suppressed by tyranny and propaganda, he felt compelled to warn future generations as similar patterns re-emerged. For George, writing was an act of conscience, an effort to break silence and highlight the ongoing threat of totalitarianism and censorship. He believed that untold memories equate to complicity and that freedom must be actively protected. If we lose freedom here, there is no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth. Ronald Reagan. There have been no credible whistleblower claims related to communism in the New York City mayoral election, where Zoran Mamdani is a leading Democratic candidate for November 2025. My personal experience mirrors George's. As immigrants from Eastern Europe, my family found hope in America after years of religious persecution in Bulgaria, where underground Christian gatherings were held in secret under communist rule. Following the fall of the Berlin Wall, we sought freedom in New York, where I was ordained amidst a renewed faith community. Today, many from the former Soviet bloc see trends in America, censorship, and a subtle erosion of freedoms. As believers, we are called to defend truth and resist fear, holding fast to our values. The stories and warnings of immigrants serve as reminders to stay vigilant so that the freedoms we cherish are preserved. This message forms the heart of my project. Crossing Borders of Time bridges heritage, faith, and the timeless struggle for freedom, resonating with audiences of all ages who believe that miracles still happen when faith leads the way. I invite you, Angel Studios, to join me in bringing this story to life, a cinematic testament to divine protection and enduring human spirit. It was one of those Chicago mornings where the snow hushes the whole city. There was my grandfather George by the window, the sunlight striping his face through the blinds. He clutched that old pocket Bible of his, the one he carried through the war. Across from him, my son, little Georgie, and I just waited. He hadn't spoken much that week, but as the light hit his face, his lips began to move, and I knew he was about to tell us a story we'd never forget.
Thank God our orange man won this election, George says, closing his Bible. His grandson, Georgie, looks up with wide eyes. Grandpa, what was freedom for you? George smiles, his voice gentle but firm. Freedom was faith that survived the bullets. He pulls them close. Let me tell you about the day I escaped Bulgaria.
It was Easter, April 30th, 1948. We called it the Border of Death. The river Maritsa divided life from freedom and boys from men. The moonlight was shining on water when George, a teenage boy. He then has to crawl through snow, and gunfire echoing in the distance. Bulgarian border soldiers shout orders and the dogs bark wildly. George just kept faith that he would get away. They were shooting without warning. The trick was not to panic, just pray. George remembers whispering the same words his grandfather had written inside this Bible. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. Psalm 91:7. A bullet strikes his jacket. The Bible stops it. Light bursts through the darkness as he falls into the freezing river. George swimming across the black water, teeth chattering, clutching his Bible. Searchlights sweep past. He crawls up the Greek shore, trembling, then smiles through tears. He was 16, soaked, shaking, but alive. He danced a victory dance because he knew God had carried me across. My grandfather's stories of escaping Bulgaria always felt like myths, ancient heroes crossing the river of death. But standing here, on the banks of the Maritsa River, I finally get it. This wasn't a myth. This was real. His survival was a miracle. For years, I was told a different story, one that made me ignorant of my own history. When my grandfather George saw me, his voice trembled. "Alex," he said, "a specter is haunting your generation. The same one that haunted me. Communism. It's a dead ideology, wrapped in new clothes and sold to you as something healthy." I just sat there, silent, the weight of his words hitting me hard. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a lifetime of pain. "You don't understand," he said. "I lived it." "But Grandpa, what about the good things?" "Free healthcare, education," voice cuts in, older, passionate. "At what cost, Alex?" "Do you know how many people died? Nearly 100 million victims across the USSR and China. They hide the bloodshed, the gulags. You think this is democratic socialism? It's the same old story repackaged. I see the same dangerous signs now, even here in America. You're being deceived. Freedom is not something you trade for false promises. Remember the cost. Learn the real history, not just the propaganda." First, he survived the persecutions of communism, but then came a quieter trial. The crushing loneliness of freedom in a new land. He and so many other Eastern European immigrants crossed oceans chasing a dream. They settled in places like Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, trying to start over. But when they tried to warn America about the darkness rising back home, no one listened. Their broken English, meant to cry out a warning about the fire of communism, was mistaken for the threat itself. America didn't see messengers, it saw danger. They heard revolution when all they were trying to say was, "Don't let the fire spread here." George had seen this ghost before. The same specter of Vasily the Bolshevik, his granduncle, that once haunted his homeland. Now it was whispering across America. It spoke of fairness, of justice, of equality. But he had seen what followed those words. Hunger, silence, fear. He'd escaped the cage of that ideology, but the echoes still lived inside him. He knew how easily the mind can be trained, how faith becomes propaganda, how freedom dies behind beautiful slogans. To America, George was just an old man with a warning, but to Alex, he was a witness. A witness to what happens when truth is replaced by the illusion of a communist utopia. In the heart of New York, a young politician speaks of seizing the means of production. His critics call it communism. To many, it sounds like progress. But to those who fled the Iron Curtain, his words sound hauntingly familiar. They've heard this song before. The promises of equality, the dream of a perfect world, and the silence that follows when dissent disappears. Crossing Borders of Time is the true story of my family's survival, a testament that miracles happen when faith leads the way. I'm asking the Angel Guild to help bring this award-winning story to life, to remind us that freedom is fragile and can be lost not in a revolution, but in applause.